Welcome to Candidates of Liberty, a special series from Lions of Liberty dedicated to spotlighting libertarian candidates across the country. If you enjoy our work, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/Lions of Liberty.
All right, friends, this is your host today, Marc here with my guest on the debut edition of Candidates of Liberty. She is a current sitting member of the Nebraska State Legislature. First elected in 2014 as a Republican, she decided to leave the Republican Party and join the Libertarian Party in 2016. She is up for re-election this November. I am so very pleased to welcome Miss Laura Ebke. Laura, are you ready to roar?
I am ready to roar, Marc.
Well, excellent, Laura. Now, how did this journey all start for you? I mean, you were a sitting Republican in the Nebraska State Legislature. Why did you decide to switch to the Libertarian Party?
Well, a couple of things. First, you have to realize that Nebraska is that weird state that has a nonpartisan unicameral legislature. So we are actually not elected as either Republicans or Democrats, and we don't organize by party either. So that made it somewhat more easy for me. What it came down to was I was always sort of a liberty-leaning Republican. I was a Ron Paul Republican, and before that I was a Reagan Republican, and before that I was a Goldwater Republican as a child. And it seemed to me that the party was losing its libertarian constitutionalist leanings, and there came a point when it just seemed like the right thing to do.
Was there a specific moment when you just had that revelation that the Republican Party is just not for me anymore? I have to in order to stick with my principles, I have to go do something else?
Yeah, there were a couple of votes my first year in the legislature, which I thought were very anti-libertarian. The way I voted were very pro-libertarian, obviously, but and I could have lived with the difference. But the governor of Nebraska in May of 2016 called out the senators who voted contrary to his wishes. And he said that we were not platform Republicans and that it was time to elect more platform Republicans. And this was at the same time that he was supporting several Republicans against other sitting Republicans. And so after sitting through that state convention, I had sort of a revelation. I went home and I thought about it, and I got online and switched my party registration a couple of weeks later after thinking about it for a while.
So they basically wanted party loyalty over the actual principles that you ran on originally. Yeah, no, I think that's that was exactly it. And I think that that any party has people of different principles. A big party is going to have people with different principles. And the question is whether or not you're going to hold every single person in that party to the same interpretation or the same understanding of the platform and of what those principles are. I mean, we have to have some, in any party, you have to have some level of understanding that not everybody's going to see things exactly the same way. My sense was that there was an expectation within the Republican Party of Nebraska, anyhow, that if you were going to be an elected official, you had to see everything in the same way as the party establishment and as the governor saw it. And how did you go about, I know you said you went online and made that switch, but did you then reach out to the State Libertarian Party or the National Party? Did you kind of let them know, hey, look, I kind of want to come over. I want to leave the Republican Party. How did that all go down behind the scenes? Yeah,
interestingly, back in a month or so ahead of that, I'd been invited to come and speak to the Libertarian Party of Nebraska's convention because I was probably the most libertarian member of the legislature already, and they didn't have anybody who was a registered libertarian. So they invited me to come and talk. We had run in a lot of the same circles over time just because I'd been part of the Republican Liberty Caucus. The Libertarian Party had been, many of the folks from the Libertarian Party had sort of moved into and out of the Republican Party during the Ron Paul years. And so, we were standing in line for lunch after I had spoken, and one of the guys at the Libertarian Party convention walked up to me and said, Senator, if you ever decide to switch parties, you'd always be welcome with us. And I said, okay. And I was kind of laughing about it at the time. And then, we had this little hoopla at the state Republican convention a month later. And at that point, what I did was I let my friends in the Republican Liberty Caucus know what I was intending to do. I let the Libertarian Party guys know what I was thinking that I was going to do. And I sent out a letter to all of the people who had supported me financially in 2014, in my 2014 race, and let them know what my plans were and why I was doing it. And then when I made the official switch, it happened to be at the time that the Libertarian Party convention was going on in Orlando. And so I messaged those guys and I said, it's official, I've switched. And that happened to be about 15 minutes before Nebraska's roll call vote. And they said, well, we're going to announce it. And I said, well, don't announce my name just yet. But they did because I wanted to make sure that that all of the people that I donated to had the opportunity to read the letter. And so they got up and they announced that Nebraska was the home of the newest libertarian legislator. About 2 days later, I got a phone call from one of the big press entities in the state. Said, Senator, we've heard that somebody's making a party switch. It wouldn't happen to be you, would it? I guess I was the likely suspect, and so I said, let me call you back. And I did a quick email to constituents then at that point, and then called the press back.
I guess it didn't take too much detective work for them to figure out who it was.
Yeah, it didn't really, I guess.
And now, how was your party switch received by members of the Republican Party, by people you had worked with side by side in the Nebraska state legislature, and by your constituents who had elected you as I guess they didn't elect you as a Republican technically, based on how the system works there.
Yeah, no, they didn't. I think they knew that I was a Republican or that I was conservative. They didn't necessarily know. And I'd always billed myself as a libertarian Republican. So for the most part, there were a few that were upset, understandably so, those who are the most partisan. Others sent me emails. I sent out about 1,000 emails that day, and I got about 100 responses back, and I'd say 97 of those were positive. That said that they understood, that they that they knew that my principles weren't changing, and that sort of thing. Within the legislature, I was treated very well. My colleagues, I got emails from them almost immediately and text messages that said, yeah, we knew that's what you were anyhow. So they were fine with it. And in fact, they elected me as chair of the Judiciary Committee as the legislature started in 2017. So, they elected me to a fairly major leadership position. So it was really mostly good. Certainly party loyalists and the Republican Party weren't necessarily happy with me, and the party itself has taken it as sort of its purpose in life to punish me to some extent. But be that as it may, I feel good about maintaining my principles.
So you now have that big target on your back. They want you out of there, I'm guessing.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, certainly they, the governor ran somebody against me, in the primary. There were 3 of us in the primary. 2 of us made it through. The person that the governor had endorsed did not, but the other person, who ended up, moving through to the general election with me, is a Republican as well. So we have yet to see what role the Republican Party will take in the general election. But I'm sure that I'm anticipating that it will probably not be not be a low-key election.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your opponent and about this race specifically, how it's been shaping up, how the media has been covering it there in Nebraska? Is this seen as sort of a big deal?
It is seen as sort of a big deal, in part because I've raised this fairly significant amount of money from outside of the state. The Republican Party in Nebraska told folks who had donated to me in the past that if their name showed up on any of my reporting forms, meaning if they gave $250 or more to me, that they would lose any position on their county and state or state central committee. So essentially, give to Ebke and you'll be persona non grata in the Republican Party.
Seems a little underhanded, but I suppose that's politics as usual. Nowadays.
It's the politics of the day. So that was part of it. I've gotten a fair amount of money from out of state, and so that was fodder for another little grass fire that we had to fight during the primary. People criticizing me because I'd been taking money from outside, and I think that the big issues in the state are really local issues, property taxes and size and scope of government and school funding and that sort of thing. So all the things that state legislators always have to deal with. So we're fighting sort of a two-front battle, sort of a national attention battle. People are paying attention to us nationally. The state media is watching, and we've had several stories in some of the legislature, the big legislative reporters are covering the story, and then we also have. We have local media and local personages who are watching to see what happens and how we are able to, to get through that. It's a lot of door knocking and a lot of parades.
Right.
It's a rural district, so we use a lot of the kind of old-fashioned methods of campaigning.
Shaking hands and kissing babies, huh?
That's right. Yeah.
Laura, I'm curious, what issues are the most important to you as a state legislator? What do you find yourself talking to your constituents about the most in terms of the type of legislation that you could put forward as a member of that legislature?
Well, probably the most important thing to me, and it has been since I ran in 2014, I come from the district that I live in. I grew up in a town of less than 5,000 people. I live in a town of about 6,000 people now, just up the road from there. The people that I serve are people that I grew up with and grew up around. So, what I've seen over the last 30 years or so is a real decrease in the population of rural Nebraska. And what I would like to see is ways of spurring economic development in our rural communities. Now, that doesn't mean government handouts. What that means is government getting out of the way so that private industry is able to have a little bit more opportunity in some of these local areas. If we can do that, then we can start to turn the corner on decreasing populations in those areas and maybe start regaining population.
Laura, one more thing I wanted to ask you about. As you know, especially being a member of the Libertarian Party the last couple of years, Libertarians are pretty big on their principles. We're always arguing about them, debating them, that sort of thing. Yeah. I'm curious if there are any positions or viewpoints within the sort of libertarian philosophy that you not necessarily disagree with, but maybe that you have questions about or aren't fully on board with, want to sort of explore more before you make a full statement on. Is there anything in that scope that you kind of question from time to time?
Sure. I am by nature a fairly conservative and boring person, and I think that's Nebraska. I'm also probably older than the average libertarian, at 56. So there are some things, which I will call the social issues that I don't necessarily disagree with people. I don't necessarily disagree with the party, even philosophically. It's more a matter of pragmatics. For instance, sex worker planks or some of the drug legalization planks. It's not that I disagree with the idea. It's just, those are the kinds of things that it's like, I'm not really quite all there yet. Personally, I'm not fighting them, but I don't necessarily. I'm not sure that I'm not sure that I'm actively embracing those issues either.
Right. Is it more a thing where you might, if you really break down the philosophy, agree with the position, but it's not really something you're going to hold high as your banner, and it's maybe not something that really fits into your own, I guess, maybe your own cultural sort of take on things.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah.
Well, Laura, it's been great speaking with you. Before I let you go, why don't you just tell everybody out there how they can find out more about your campaign, how they can get involved? Obviously, even if you're not in Nebraska, this is a very important race for the Libertarian Party because we want to show people that it's okay to switch, that it's a good thing to switch parties if your principles are not lining up with whatever party you're in. I also had a couple people in New Hampshire that switched over from the Republican and Democrat parties. And so we really want to send a message out there that if you have principles and you want to come to the Libertarian Party, that it is safe to do so, that you can still be reelected. So why don't you tell everybody out there how they can find out more about your campaign, how they can get involved?
Sure. Well, you can search for me on Facebook, obviously. I've got two Facebook pages. One is my official page. It's Sen Laura Ebke. Then there's also Ebke 2018, which is my campaign website. I have a regular website, which is lauraebke.com. And that's probably the best way you can get to the Facebook page and my Twitter account from there. Plus, you can always donate, or you can send information, or you can volunteer. You can do all sorts of things from that page.
Senator Laura Ebke, it's been amazing talking to you. I wish you the best of luck in your race.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate the time.
All right, friends, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Laura Ebke. We are certainly pushing for her to win her race in Nebraska this November. Be sure to check out her campaign, and we hope you enjoyed the very first edition of Candidates of Liberty. Again, if this is your first time listening to the show or listening to my voice, please do check out our regular podcast, the Lions of Liberty podcast. Just hit that subscribe button on the Lions of Liberty podcast feed, and you will get all of our shows in our 3-show format, which features myself every single Monday hosting interviews with leaders in the libertarian movement, as well as roundtables, often liquor-induced roundtables. We also have Brian McWilliams every single Wednesday, bringing you your weekly shot of comedy, culture, and liberty on Electric Liberty Land, and John Odermatt wraps things up every single Friday with his extremely important show, his hard-hitting look at the broken criminal justice system on Felony Friday. We really do have something for everyone here at Lions of Liberty, including now, at least through November, this show you're listening to right now, Candidates of Liberty. I want to make sure that you know where you can find today's show notes for this program, which can be found at lionsofliberty.com/COL1. Get that? Candidates of Liberty, COL, and the number 1, because this is the first episode. Very simple stuff. We like to keep things easy for you. And if you appreciate and enjoy the work we're doing, especially the work we are now doing, the extra work we are now putting in to bring you these very short, digestible candidate interviews, please do consider supporting us on Patreon. You can find all the information about that over at patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. For as little as $5 a month, you get access to loads of bonus audio content, and you get to help this program grow. You get to help us do more things like this, more bonus shows, extra content, even when it's content for everybody. It really is all funded by our Lions of Liberty Pride members over on Patreon. So please do check that out. Until next time, folks, why don't you go ahead and live long and live free.